Plus, Shakespeare's birthplace trust is set to decolonize Shakespeare following supposed concerns that the playwright has been used to promote white supremacy. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most intellectual panel, the Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley and the former Labour MP Lloyd Russell-Moyle. As ever, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now, it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Jacob. It is 8:01. Very good evening to you. Our top stories. The White House says it's never been closer to a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. The Kremlin's confirmed a call will take place tomorrow between the presidents of Russia and the United States. Donald Trump says he and Vladimir Putin will discuss land, power plants and dividing up certain assets when they discuss a peace plan for Ukraine. Now, the White House press secretary says President Trump is willing to impose sanctions on Russia if necessary, and she confirmed that a power plant, possibly, although not confirmed, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, will be part of those discussions.
Good afternoon. There's a power plant that is on the border of Russia and Ukraine that was up for discussion with the Ukrainians, and he will address it in his call with Putin tomorrow.
The nuclear plant.
We'll see you guys later at the Kennedy Center. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Caroline.
The Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall says controversial changes to the welfare system will ensure there is trust and fairness. The government's facing opposition from campaign groups and some Labour MPs ahead of expected cuts to the benefits bill designed to get more people back to work. They'll be announced tomorrow. Well, Downing Street says there's a moral and economic case for reforming the system, and the cuts are being introduced not because of the UK's economic situation. Liz Kendall was speaking in the Commons.
I want to say there has understandably been lots of speculation about the government's reforms to social security, and I want to assure the House, and most importantly the public, that we'll be coming forward with our proposals imminently to ensure there is trust and fairness in the social security system, and to ensure that it is there for people who need it now and for years to come.
Now, Farage has welcomed 29 councillors who've defected to Reform ahead of the local elections in May. It takes the party's total number of council seats to more than 100. Speaking at a Reform UK news conference, he announced that they'd come from a selection of parties, including the Conservatives, Labour and the Lib Dems. And it demonstrates how his party is becoming broader and deeper.
We are growing, we are building, we are deepening, we are broadening, we are strengthening, we are getting ready for the 1st of May. This party is very, very much on the up.
Meanwhile, climate change protesters have interrupted a speech by the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch at an event to commemorate Margaret Thatcher. Well, Kemi Badenoch had only uttered a few words at the start of her speech when she was interrupted, the heckler holding a banner that said, "Abolish billionaires." Well, she was ejected from the hall before another protester called out about the cost of living crisis. Ms Badenoch was heard saying Baroness Thatcher could hardly be blamed for that. That's it from me. I'll be back with more in about an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Save the Nation. The old adage goes that you must cut your coat according to your cloth. But in the United Kingdom, where the national debt is the same size as GDP, where the third highest state cost is paying the debt interest, about £100 billion a year, and where the cost of borrowing repeatedly reaches new highs, it is clear that we have no cloth left. Regrettably, it appears the Labour Party will not implement its plan to freeze the personal independence allowance in nominal terms and will instead increase it in line with inflation, owing to concerns, fears, terror of a backbench rebellion, a move that would prove Labour has lost its nerve on benefits. Of all the areas of the state, it is welfare that needs the most radical and urgent overhaul. 5.5 million people in the United Kingdom or on out-of-work benefits. In total, welfare currently costs £285.7 billion and is projected to cost £360 billion by 2028-29. But it isn't only unaffordable, it is actively harming our economy via its incentive trap. Research from the Centre for Social Justice shows that a full-time minimum wage job pays less than sickness benefits in many cases. If these people were in work, it would help turn around our stagnant economic growth. It is this system that also encourages mass migration. We're constantly told that we have a labour shortage, which must be filled by migrants. But in reality, we have millions of people who are stuck in this trap. The UK has well and truly entered the era of managed decline if it continues like this, and our broken welfare system is one of the main causes. If the Labour government, the socialist government, wants to show some serious spine, backbone on welfare, it could begin with this. According to new analysis, 1 million foreign-born people are claiming benefits in the UK. This is an affront to the fabric of our society and forces us once again to ask the question, what is the point of migration? Is it meant to make our country wealthier or poorer? And here's more clear evidence that it's making us less well off. These people are costing you £7.5 billion a year, the equivalent of the money raised by inheritance tax, or winter fuel allowance 3.5 times over, or the money raised by Labour attack on farmers 14.5 times over. If we want to be a serious country and end the era of managed decline and the slow-motion collapse, we have to bring an end to this system that makes a mockery of the taxpayer and has done for too long. As ever, let me know your views via mailmog@gbnews.com, and I'm joined now by my highly intellectual panel, Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley and the former Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle. Lloyd, the Labour Party's lost its backbone at the threat of an attack from Diane Abbott.
No, the Labour Party is talking about reforms to welfare that will help bring down the welfare bill, but will not attack the most vulnerable, the people that we need to help to get into work. PIP, for example, which you mentioned, is a payment not because you are out of work. It is a modest payment to help you continue to be in work. So it is a payment, for example, for someone who can't walk and so therefore needs to get a taxi to work to be able to do that.
But you know perfectly well an awful lot of PIP isn't for people in that situation.
The majority of PIP...
A lot, and it's gone up hugely with mental health cases.
No, you don't get PIP for mental health.
You get PIP, the personal independence payment, you do get PIP for mental health.
PIP is for adjustments to be able to live your life. If you're unable to work, you can receive separate disability living allowance, which is what it was called, but now is part of universal credit. But PIP is to be able to live your life
and it's
to be able to work.
But you've had a huge rise in the personal independence payments. That has there's been an enormous increase in incapacity. You've seen cases of ill health since 2012 remain broadly flat, and a 40% increase in the number of people claiming incapacity benefits.
Well, this is not true. We've seen huge...
Yeah, this is true.
No, it's true about the increase in PIP, yeah. But it's not true that we've seen the country broadly as healthy
we have,
as
actually.
previously.
I saw figures on this morning.
We have had rocketing waiting times in our NHS.
But
we have a failure we have a failure in mental health services. And the problem is, if you have to wait 6 months to a year to be treated, you might still get treated at the end of it. Be okay, but actually, the damage, particularly with mental health, the damage is done. So you then have long-term, possibly for life.
Well, the question is how much of the mental health is genuine mental health, and to what extent mental health has become the bad back of the 2020s.
With regards to foreigners receiving benefits, am I not right that they have to have had leave to remain, so they've got settled or refugee status?
Indefinite leave to remain.
Indefinite leave to remain. So these are not just foreigners who turn up and claim.
Immigrants shouldn't be a cost to the state.
Recognised. No, but they may well have contributed. I mean, for instance, to get the state pension, you have to have been here for 10 years and contributing. So it's not. This isn't just the case, is it, that you just walk in and get the benefit?
Well, you do get some benefits just by walking in. We pay benefits to asylum seekers. We pay them a living allowance.
Well, we have to allow them to work.
It's not hugely generous.
Right. OK.
Well, surely
people who come here should not be any cost to the state.
Well, it depends on if they've contributed and what their status is and what it is.
Does it? Surely the indefinite leave should go once they become a cost to the state.
Because you think you prefer they just became citizens if they wish to become citizens. I mean,
That's right.
But a lot of asylum seekers would agree with that and say the problem is I have to sit around waiting for that to happen.
But the biggest crime there is not foreigners. What about a Brit who's been at war abroad and not paid a penny, and then they come back to claim their pension or to claim
the state pension's hard
now,
to
come on,
claim.
they're a British-born scrounger. That's very different. I mean, what I can't get my head around...
My problem is, if people have paid in, they should get some money out. If I went to work in America or I went to work in Belgium, maybe is a better example, and I've paid in my system, and then I become unemployed temporarily, I should receive support from the Belgium system, not from the British system. What a disgrace it would be to ask people who haven't paid in, Brits, to get benefits here.
Most of our benefits are non-contributory.
Yeah.
The state pension is contributory, but most of our benefits are not.
So these people have to have been here for 10 years and have paid in.
If, for example, you're a foreign visitor, you do have to pay for NHS care. You don't just get
Except we never managed to charge for it.
It's difficult to chase people for it, but if you do go to a hospital now, there are signs everywhere saying if you are from abroad, you must prove it.
What confuses... That's just incorrect, sorry, what you just said there. If you are here on a visa, you pay up front a fee to access the NHS. So this idea that they haven't paid, I'm sorry, is just wrong.
No. In terms of benefits, most of our benefits are non-contributory. The fact you've paid tax is completely irrelevant.
Here's what I don't understand.
The national insurance is contributory to your pension.
I've got two politicians on the show. Here's what I don't get. I vote Tory and you put my taxes up. I vote Labour and you cut my benefits. What is going on here, guys? It just feels like you do whatever I vote for you to do, you're going to do the complete opposite. And it's going to frustrate a lot of voters that for about 10 years they've been told mental health is really important. Then COVID hits and they're all locked up indoors and they're told we'll pay you not to work. And also, if you're made mentally or physically ill by it, we'll look after you. So people adjust their lifestyles to reflect this new consensus that people shouldn't have to work and mental health is as serious as physical. So you should be able to stay at home. But having done all that, the government of whatever hue comes in and says, looking at the bills, we can't afford this. Well, I'm sorry. Politicians have been advising the public for 10 years that they could live this way. And now they've changed their mind and they're going to kick a lot of people out when they've become used to those
People adjust their behaviour
supports.
according to the benefits that are available, and then you have to change things.
Right.
But in the 1980s, everybody had a bad back, and you then have to have tests to make sure the bad backs are real.
So why didn't IDS fix all this? Because we were told that this is what the coalition government was going to do. Universal credit would fix all of this. And suddenly everyone just moves to
When IDS was in office, there were checks, and the checks stopped with COVID. And that was a huge error.
I come back to that. Your government told us all we could sit at home and we'll pay for you.
But never mind.
And we'll pay for you, and your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And then 4 or 5 years later, we're suddenly told, actually, you're sponges.
The problem was
That's extraordinary.
The problem was not bringing back the tests once COVID had ended. It was very hard to do them during COVID, and all sorts of things went on remotely. But it's this failure to get back into work, which is not purely a governmental failure. When I was in the government, we tried very hard to get people back to work, but people are refusing to get back to work.
Right.
And we've got to be much tougher on that, more Trumpian on that, and fire people who ain't going to work.
In the last 30 years, we have lost 120,000 mental health beds. You cannot tell me if you're going to make long-term, sustained cuts to medical services, and I'm not just saying over the last 10 years, but over decades, saying, oh, no, don't worry, we don't need to have proper institutions that treat people anymore. We don't need to have youth services that help young people anymore in our communities. Conservatives cut £1 billion of money out of that. And instead, you're just, OK, get on with it. And then, of course, when you get to crisis, there's no one to come and support you and help you. And, of course, then you go on.
Without defending mental health provision over the last 30 years, everyone wanted to close those large mental hospitals because they were in human places. So the loss of the £120,000 beds is closing the Wells Asylum.
They weren't replaced with other... Yes, you get rid of the horrible... Just like you close a hospital that's failing, doesn't mean that you have less beds. You need beds in the community, you need beds...
But Lloyd, if austerity is a choice, as the left has been saying for 15 years, why is your party making the choice again?
Well, there we go. That's a good point on which to end. Thank you to my highly intellectual panel. After the messages from our sponsors, I'll be speaking to a man from the institution that has helped Donald Trump to do what the UK can't, solve the migration problem. And don't forget, I'll also be speaking to Britain's strictest headmistress, Catherine Birbalsingh, about the government's brutal schools bill that is set to devastate the education system.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised!
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As a steak and ale is the most popular one. That's the one that's in the British Pie Awards. We've got chicken. We do a just steak. All the steak is slow cooked overnight, and then we shred it and mix it with Tracy's signature gravy. We've also now been able to put fruit pies on, and we do quiches as well.
This family-run pie shop in Dinnington is going for a big win at the British Pie Awards. The busy South Yorkshire store has only been open for 6 weeks, and already it's hoping for a prize for its pies.
It's British tradition. You know, it lets especially independent people like us to get his name out there, especially if we win the award. Everybody loves a good pie, especially with we do meals with the mash and the chips and the peas and the gravy. We'll put baked beans on if they want them. It's just tradition, isn't it? Everybody loves a good pie.
For the customers here, pies are one of Britain's best dishes.
They're always full of goodness, aren't they? Hearty, filling, and you could put them with so many things, different vegetables, different types of potatoes. Yeah, just good all-rounder.
Feel-good food, innit? Pies, yeah. It's not like takeaway food, it's just feel-good food. Feel at home, you know.
If it's got a nice filling and a nice pastry, there's nothing better. But just like them, the easy meals. My family love all the pies here. I've come in about 3 times a week this week, especially the quiches that you can see coming out of the oven. They're freshly made, you can take them home and freeze them.
So here we go, we've got the Handmade Pie Company's steak and ale pie, the one that's been entered for the awards. Let's give it a try. That is absolutely delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised!
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, we were talking about welfare and the mail mogs have come steaming in. Claire says, not mincing her words, what moronic leaders do we have had that allow benefits to be more lucrative than having a full-time job? And Elizabeth says, migrants should not be getting any benefits. People that have minor mental health issues should not get benefits to stay at home. They should be at work. And Mark, this is just the type of introduction to a mail mog I like. Jacob, you're so right. But it goes downhill from there. But why didn't your party do anything? It's a very good question. Tough questions in the mail mogs. While the UK's asylum system is in a state of disarray, it's not exactly news, with today's news revealing the backlog in the appeal system is up by 500% over the last 2 years alone, Donald Trump's successful migration policies are in stark contrast. Last month, 8,347 people were arrested trying illegally to cross the border, which represents the lowest number on record in decades, a fall by 82%. The Trump administration has already deported thousands of migrants, which included the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport 5 Venezuelans. The agenda proves that deportation serves as a proper deterrent to illegal arrivals and suggests we ought to be taking inspiration here in the United Kingdom. I'm very pleased to be joined this evening by the director of the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation, Niall Gardner. Niall, thank you for coming in.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you, Jacob.
There must be somebody in the White House who has been given a gold star for discovering the 1798 Act and working out that it was still valid and can be used, because that's given the president great powers.
It's an absolutely brilliant move, and it's already being used, of course, to deport Venezuelan gang members who have been sent off actually to El Salvador under a deal struck with the government there. And so it's a superb move by the Trump administration. And they're very determined, of course, to end illegal migration, to deport illegal migrants, especially all the gangs out there who came in actually under the Biden presidency. So real action is being taken in America.
And a lot of crime that went with illegal immigration, and nobody else had been able to do anything about it. It's the threat of deportation that seems to have worked. More than building a wall, it's the threat of deportation.
Yeah, I think not only the threat of deportation, but the actual implementation of deportation is having a real effect on cutting down the vast numbers of people who tried previously to get into the United States. And so what we're seeing now really is a real sense of determination, a sense of willpower to actually end illegal migration into the United States. And we're very nearly there. And a former colleague of mine at the Heritage Foundation, Tom Homan, is the border czar in charge of overseeing the deportation program and the action against illegal migrants. So everything's really going very well in that direction today.
And do you see any lessons for the United Kingdom? Could we follow this and get control of our migration problem, particularly the people coming over from the Channel, who we seem just to provide hotel accommodation to?
Yes, I think a number of lessons, certainly for the UK. I think, firstly, you've got to make it harder for migrants who claim asylum in the United Kingdom. I think, secondly, what Donald Trump has done is he has brought in the US military, actually, on the southern border to stem the flow of illegal migrants. That's working very well. And thirdly, of course, you've got to deport illegal migrants, send them back.
And how far back are people being deported? Because it's relatively easy, at least in theory, to deport people who've just arrived. They haven't got ties and so on and so forth. When people have been here for a year, 2 years, 10 years and so on, are those people being deported as well?
Yeah, I think that the deportation program is going to look at all illegal migrants. Of course, 10 million people cross the US border illegally under Joe Biden, a staggeringly high number. But the total number of illegal migrants in the United States is perhaps as high as 20 million. And so the Trump administration is focusing, first of all, on getting rid of all of the gangs, those with criminal records, in addition, of course, to the vast numbers of general illegal migrants. Of course, all of them have committed a crime entering the United States illegally.
Is a crime in itself,
yes,
as is entering the UK illegally.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
And Trump is being very successful in terms of domestic policy. People like me, who are broadly on the right, look at what he's doing and think, yep, this is great. But we worry about what he's doing in terms of international policy, that it seems to me in America's self-interest, Russia is a threat and that Putin mustn't be allowed to succeed. What is your understanding of what is happening in relation to Putin, and what is Trump's strategy?
Well, I think Trump's overall strategy, certainly for the transatlantic alliance, is to make NATO great again. He wants European partners to spend significantly more on their own defence. I don't think that this administration is being weak in the face of Putin. Putin is recognised as a deadly threat. Trump wants to see European allies really taking up the bulk of the defence of Europe, and I think that's a perfectly rational position for a US president to take. And that's already having a big impact, I think, upon our European friends and partners who are ramping up defence spending. But the reality is, of course, Putin poses a deadly threat to the future of Europe. That's well understood in Washington. But the US also poses immense threats faces immense threats from communist China, from Islamist Iran, and a host of other nefarious actors. So the US has to really confront a whole range of adversaries on the world stage.
But the treatment of Zelensky does make it seem as if the White House is more sympathetic to Putin than to Zelensky, and that gives the impression, I would have thought, to communist China and extremist Iran that actually America won't necessarily stand up for the victim.
Yeah, I don't think that's really the reality at all. In fact, I think there's a huge amount of sympathy for Ukraine and support for the Ukrainians, and that has been expressed by a whole series of US officials recently. And we're very close, of course, to getting a peace deal that will actually, I think, be to the benefit of Ukraine. And I think that the threat that Putin, of course, poses, not only to Ukraine, but the whole of Europe, is a deadly serious threat. We need to see a revitalized NATO alliance. And we need to recognize, of course, the barbarism and the savagery that the Russians have committed in Ukraine. Let's never forget that. And we have to be strong and determined, of course, in the face of the Russian threat, the Chinese threat, the Iranian threat, a whole axis of evil out there that has to be defeated.
The axis of evil that is unchanged from previous decades. And then in economic policy, the tariffs. Tariffs harm the country that imposes them, that it puts up costs for American consumers. It makes Americans, individual Americans, worse off. It may help corporations, but it doesn't help John Doe, who's going to Walmart to buy whatever he's going to buy. Is Trump taking a risk with tariffs that will have a profoundly negative effect on the US economy domestically?
Well, I think there's a huge amount of debate over tariffs right now in the United States. I think that President Trump is applying tariffs in order to deliver political results. And he's put a lot of pressure, of course, on Mexico, Canada, a whole array of countries. He's implemented very tough tariffs against the Chinese Communist Party, I think rightly so. The Chinese deserve every single tariff that's hitting them, frankly. And I think, Donald Trump wants to see a level playing field, especially in terms of relations with Europe. And the EU, of course, has operated like a protectionist racket for many, many decades.
Well, I agree with that.
And I think Donald Trump really wants to take on the EU on that and really force the European Union to drop their protectionist measures against the United States.
And a very final thought on Canada. Does Trump really want Canada? Because then the king would become king of the United States. And Canada, if it were more than one state, which it probably would be, they'd all have voted against Trump, so he might not have won the election with Canada.
It's a fascinating debate over Canada right now, and I have to say that there's a great deal of discussion in Washington about the future of Canada, no doubt in Ottawa as well. But it certainly made for an extraordinary I think, scenario for US-Canadian relations. That's for sure.
Well, God save the King of Canada, and thank you very much to Niall. In a moment, I'll be speaking to Britain's strictest headmistress, Catherine Birbalsingh, about Labour's brutal schools bill that is set to devastate our education system.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, here's your latest winter sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. There'll be some unsettled weather across Iberia over the next few days. Elsewhere, some sunshine and a few showers too. As for Tuesday, we can expect a few showers across the Canaries, Madeira, some more persistent rain across parts of Spain and Portugal. The central looks brighter, one or two showers around, and then we run into some more persistent rain again across parts of Greece with some hill snow in places here too. As for the rest of the week, well, there'll be some warm sunshine to contend with, one or two showers too, and some more persistent rain out across western spots.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you Spread the word.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply. It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We were talking about the US migrant crisis and the mail mogs have come in. Jay says the UK does not have the will or people backing to do what Trump is doing. And Nicholas says to Jacob, Sir, didn't the press report a man called Carney did a golden brown crash to Canada's gold just before he left Canada to be offered a plum bank job by a man called Gideon? That's a very interesting question. Who ran against Carney in Canada to get the job? Well, they've got an election coming up, so we shall see if he succeeds. And if he sold the gold, people might remind him of that. This evening, Labour has had its second reading of its controversial schools bill, which, among other things, is set to roll back many of the academy freedoms that have proved so fruitful over the past 15 years. The former Ofsted chief, Amanda Spillman, launched an excoriating attack on the bill last night, claiming the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, is bowing to the demands of the unions. But my next guest called Miss Phillipson a Marxist last month, following the meeting because she wants to centralise power in the state. Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the founder and headmistress of the Michaela Community School, Britain's strictest headmistress, Catherine Burble-Singh. Catherine, thank you very much for joining me. So what is it about the bill that you think is particularly problematic, and would it stop your school, the Michaela Community School, succeeding in the way that it has done in recent years?
Yes, but more importantly, it will really very badly affect schools that are trying to improve. So one big way in which schools improve their behavior is by the broken windows theory. You use uniform and you deal with the small things, and that way the big things take care of themselves. That is how you improve behavior in a school and how all school leaders have done it. And Bridget Phillipson is about to deny us the possibility of having more than 3 branded items of school uniform, which means if you have sport, for instance, it basically means you don't have a uniform. And it means that any school that has challenging behavior, the main way of turning around that school and making it better is being taken away from us. Other things, she's going to require all teachers to have a teaching certificate. Now, your viewers might think, oh, but that seems to make sense. Certification is a good thing. I can tell you right now, it is not. It is to deny a particular route that we can get to use to bring in teachers into the profession. Right now, there's a huge recruitment crisis. As an example, I have a young economics teacher. He went to the LSE. He was planning to go into the city to earn a ton of money with his friends, having done an economics degree, but he decided, you know what, I'll go into teaching. And now he's teaching with us. He's doing brilliantly. He is absolutely certain, had he had to do the bureaucratic that you've got to do to get that certificate, he would never have gone into teaching. I can tell you that is tenfold, over and over and over again. There are so many young people in that position, and she is going to deny those people a route into teaching. There is the PAN, pupil admissions numbers, into schools. So at the moment, I've got 120 kids that come in every year. Every school has a certain number. Bridget Phillipson is going to give the right to make a decision about how many school places a school should have over to the local authorities. That means a local authority can look at this good school and say, you know what, we're going to reduce the number of places, let's say from 120 to 100, and give those extra 20 places to the school next door that isn't so good. And that means the mums and dads who are desperate to get their children into the better school will have fewer places available to them. I mean, I could go on. There's just thing after thing after thing where she is basically going to destroy the academy freedoms that have allowed us to climb the international league tables over the last 10 years. We moved from 21st to 7th in maths internationally. We are now considered to be top in the Western world for reading on the Pearls. This is the PISA and the Pearls international exams that children take across the world. I mean, it's scandalous what's going on, and people don't seem to realize, because, of course, normal people don't read political bills, which I totally understand.
But if we think of the school uniform issue, isn't that a big expense for parents and something that if the school insists on uniform, less well-off parents won't be able to afford it, and that therefore there is an argument for saying there mustn't be too much branded school uniform, and there's something behind what Bridget Phillipson is saying. And also, you want some quality check of teachers, don't you? Can you leave that entirely to headmasters and headmistresses? Shouldn't there be some qualification that teachers have?
Yeah, they're good questions. So the first one was regard to uniform. Of course, and all sensible schools keep the number of branded items to a minimum. We've only got 5, for instance, and we only do it on items where we think it's absolutely crucial for the intake that we've got. Different intakes are different. The thing to remember is the reason why academies need freedoms is that different schools are different. My school in inner city Wembley is very different to a school in the Cotswolds, to a school in the Lake District, to a school in Hull. And so different school leaders need to make different decisions for their children. Now, we all care about not charging parents too much, so we have a second-hand uniform policy. Families return uniform, we then sell them back at very, very cheap prices, and that means families who are in genuine need can get a much cheaper uniform, and in many cases across schools, uniform is provided for free to families who really are in dire need. So that just isn't an issue, but it's a good question to ask, and it's something that all schools should look into, as they currently do. The second question was about, certification. Yes, so the assumption is that this bureaucratic stamp must ensure us that the teacher is of a certain quality. That just isn't true. It's a bureaucratic stamp. Bureaucracy never tells us that something good is taking place. All it does is satisfy bureaucratic demands. You'll find that teachers who have been trained through the variety of routes that currently exist, sometimes it can take 2 years, 1 year, sometimes it has 2 placements in schools, 1 placement in a school. The main way in which teachers learn how to teach is via their mentor in a school, by actually teaching in the classroom. So my teacher, who is an economics teacher, he is currently learning in our school how to teach, and he's been doing a great job. He just doesn't have a certificate. We do not have accreditation possibilities at our school, not because we aren't good, because we have topped the Progress 8 charts for the last 3 years, best school in the country per Progress, so we're clearly doing an excellent job. It's just that accreditation system is hugely bureaucratic, takes years to get hold of, and is something that too often teachers leave the classroom precisely because of these bureaucratic demands. And bureaucracy, workload, and behavior are the #1 things that drive teachers out of the profession. Those are the things that Bridget Phillipson should be addressing, and in fact, she's going to make them worse.
And I seem to remember you telling me that you get better results than Eton, a school for which I have a certain affection and association. So I know that what you do works amazingly well.
Yes.
But is this because of your exceptionalism, that you are leading a school brilliantly, it's been a huge success, one of the best schools in the country, but that most headmasters and headmistresses aren't you, and that therefore what Bridget Phillipson is trying to do is to recognise that across the country there are schools that actually need a bit more of a push to get their standards up, and that has to come from the centre?
So shame on you, Jacob. It can't possibly be that Bridget Phillipson, who is just a politician who knows nothing about education, knows what's better for the children in thousands and thousands of schools better than the school leaders know themselves. The school leaders have proved themselves over the last 10 years using their freedoms in order to improve the results of their intakes. That is why we have risen in the international league tables from 21st to 7th and topping now in reading. we have visitors, 800 visitors a year. Just the other day, we had 24 Finnish ministers, Flemish ministers and journalists. I say Finnish because actually we have had Swedish people there, we've had Australians there, have Americans there, all coming to England to see the amazing job that various schools in England are doing. They cannot say the same as Scotland, and I have to say they don't go to Scotland to see what's going on because Scotland have not been given the same freedoms for academies in the way that England has. So it is just, the proof is in the pudding with the international league tables. The school leaders have done a brilliant job, not just us. And Bridget Phillipson is just a politician. She has not been to visit a single progress school that has got a +1 on the Progress 8. There are 87 schools in the country. So when people say, well, maybe she just doesn't want to visit your school, Catherine Birbalsingh, well, maybe, but there are 86 other schools she could go and visit. She hasn't been to visit any of them.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I think you're absolutely right on all of this. And the proof of the pudding is you just need to look at Wales and Scotland. I'm so grateful you joined me, and I wish you every continued success. In a moment, I will be calling for Shakespeare's Birthplace Trust to have its public funding removed. Find out why shortly. Plus, I'll be speaking to one of the Chagosians planning to take His Majesty's government to court over its white flag deal.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours we'll see clearing skies widely across the UK, leading to a chilly night, but sunny for most of us on Tuesday. High pressure in charge at the moment, that's keeping things relatively settled. It's also brought a lot of cloud through Monday from the east and southeast, but that cloud's now drifting away. It's going to become confined to parts of northern and western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and a few spots through Wales and Western England overnight. Otherwise, widespread clear skies form, and under those clear skies, a widespread frost is expected, particularly for northern England as well as Scotland, with temperatures in some spots below -5 Celsius. A bit of a breeze in the south will prevent a frost here, despite blue skies to wake up to, and actually plenty of sunshine, so out of the wind. As temperatures rise through the day, it is going to feel a bit more pleasant through much of England and Wales. Northern Ireland stays with the cloud for the time being, and some patches will also continue to affect the west and northwest of Scotland, especially towards Shetland. But elsewhere across Scotland, barely a cloud in sight, and we'll keep those long spells of sunshine going right the way through the day. I think for many places it will be a breezier day compared with the last few, certainly noticeable for the south and the east, and that's a cold wind, so temperatures of 11 or 12 Celsius might not feel that pleasant in the wind, but out of the wind with the increasingly strong sunshine, feeling very warm indeed. Now, on Wednesday morning, we'll start off similar to Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. Sunnier skies for northwestern parts of the UK compared with Tuesday, but otherwise it's a similar day. Plenty of blue skies and dry weather, although a change is on the way. Through Thursday and into Friday, we'll see a bit more cloud arrive in the west and southwest, along with a few showers, but at the same time, it turns warmer.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. The Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, which owns and manages buildings linked to Shakespeare in his hometown of Stratford-upon-Avon, has denounced it will decolonise its vast museum collections, declaring that the great playwright's legacy has been hijacked to further the cause of white supremacy. They are balmy. Well, a quick look on the Charity Commission's website reveals this institution has more than £8 million of your money since 2019. So if the Trust wants to engage in this sort of silly nonsense, I think it's time we pull the plug. It gets about $250,000 a year from the Arts Council, where my panel is back, Tim Stanley and Lloyd Russell-Moyle. Lloyd, should we decolonise the Telegraph?
I'm Tim.
Did I call you Lloyd? I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right. Look, first of all, knuckle-dragging racists are not quoting Shakespeare to each other online, so I don't know what they mean by that it's been claimed by the far right. Second of all, Shakespeare already deals with issues of race and colonisation in his own words, right? Othello is black. Sherlock is Jewish. The Tempest is about colonisation. Prospero is a kind of a viceroy in his own imagined kingdom. The plays are translated across the world. They are interpreted by different cultures. Kurosawa, one of my favourite Japanese directors, made Ran, which is about King Lear. Shakespeare already does. Shakespeare is the antidote to what they fantasise Shakespeare is being used to do.
But isn't it something that, because Shakespeare is viewed as being the greatest English language author,
yes,
it promotes this idea of English exceptionalism, brilliance and genius.
Yes.
And that's a terrible thing to do if you're Samuel Pinker.
First of all, every culture thinks that of themselves. The Germans would tell you German is the most important language, and the Luther and Goethe proves it.
They sing their song about German overalls, don't they?
Well, quite. But in the case of England, we actually have a good case for exceptionalism because of the historical luck of our language being the lingua franca of the world, but also because Shakespeare is actually really good. And I come back to one reason why he is translated and watched universally. It's not just because of the language, but because of the theme, because he has an ability to speak to human, universal experiences, like young love in Romeo and Juliet. That's got nothing to do with English exceptionalism or British colonialism. That's just a universal, beautifully expressed view of love.
The English are best. I couldn't give tuppence for all of the rest.
I think that there are great pieces of literature from all different cultures and all different language bases. And clearly Shakespeare is in that list of the greats. The idea...
And he's one of us, so we should be proud of him.
We should be proud of him.
Yes, we shouldn't be saying he's been decolonised.
I'm a quarter German, so I'm also proud of some of the German heritage. But I think
our
people
royal
should,
family, which is quite...
Exactly.
Yes.
People should be proud of where they come from, their family, their backgrounds, in all their diversities. I think that what's happened here is people who don't really understand some of the political concepts around racism, critical race theory, decolonisation, have taken it because they've heard about it on the radio and they suddenly wave these words around and they say, we're going to try and do it for our museum. These are good and important concepts for universities, for debating societies, and long may they continue to be studied in that way. But for a museum to suggest that they need to decolonise Shakespeare, I think is them barking up the wrong tree and probably not understanding what decolonisation actually means.
And also, how do you do it? What are you supposed to do to decolonise?
I don't know, because I don't think it makes sense. In decolonisation is about where bearing in mind Britain was colonised by the Romans, a lot of colonies have happened for generations, is where one culture and group of people have kind of imposed their views on another group of people. And sometimes you do want to say, well, let's find out what the pre-Romans in Britain were thinking, their literature, Beowulf, etc., etc. You want to kind of get to different things that aren't just...
I may be wrong, but I think Beowulf's long after the Romans have left.
You're totally right. You're totally right. But what I mean is, you want to get to understand different. What would Boudica have been reading and thinking about, and what stories would they be telling? But that doesn't undermine. That doesn't undermine.
That doesn't make Virgil a less good poet.
Exactly.
It makes absolutely no sense because a tourist will come to this museum. And they've come for Shakespeare. And they've come for the English language. They've not come here to find out what Boudica ate for breakfast or what poetry should be.
Let's have a Boudica museum. Let's also have let's have a Black History museum. All of those things are great in their own, but it shouldn't mean that you undermine what you have also that you should celebrate.
Yes. But let's stop giving these people public money. That it's just ridiculous. They get £250,000 from the Arts Council to trash Britain and trash Shakespeare when they're meant to be promoting it.
Look, they've put out a statement that they want to decolonise, which I suspect means nothing. It's a statement and lofty words and no action. What I care about is the museum that they're offering, the educational resources that they're offering about Shakespeare. And if they continue to do that, they can put out as many stupid statements as they want. What's important is, in their museum, are they still providing public benefit and charitable benefit? And if they do continue, they should continue to get resources.
I think people are intimidated by genius, and this decolonisation is one means of taking control of it. and claiming it and remaking it in your own image. Because often it boils down to essentially deconstructing something which is great and you could never do, and replacing it with your really simplistic view of the world and talking about that instead. And I think people are intimidated by greatness.
Well, I think that's a very good point on which to end, because I'm very intimidated by Tim's greatness, even when I call him Lloyd. Anyway, a spokesman for the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust issued the following statement in response to this story. As part of our ongoing work, we've undertaken a project which explores our collections to ensure they are as accessible as possible. Well, only two annoying bureaucratic words in that statement of one paragraph: ongoing and accessible. Thank you to my panel. And finally, 2 British women born on the Chagos Islands are set to bring legal action against the UK government, His Majesty's government, saying the territory should remain in the United Kingdom, or at least an overseas territory, and should not be given over to Mauritius. And I'm joined now by one of them, Miss Beatrice Pompey. Thank you very much for joining me. So this is very brave of you to put yourself forward, head over the parapet, and say, as a Chagosian, that you don't actually want to be ruled by Mauritius.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Yes. My name is Beatrice Pompey. I was born on Diego Garcia in 1971. Then I was exiled in the Seychelles. And my colleague as well, Bernadette, as well, grew up in the Seychelles. And I came to the UK 21 years ago. And since then, I've been trying to get back to where I think I belong to, which is the Chagos. It's forbidden for us to go there ever since. We've been fighting for 60 years now. And I'm part of a group called Chagosian Voices, who was formed in 2020 as a coalition of existing Chagosian groups to voice, for the Chagosian to be able to voice their concerns and seek help on all platforms across the globe, even in Europe. And we have been fighting for the Chagosian indigenous rights and mounted numerous local campaigns to improve the lives of Chagosians. We have been 3 times with the UN to advance the indigenous rights. We also have help people every day in the community.
And like the Falklands and Gibraltar, you're basically saying you should have the right of self-determination rather than having this decided for you by Mauritius, which is thousands of miles away.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, that's brilliant. I'm sorry I've got to cut you off after such a short space of time, Beatrice, but I'm so grateful you've joined me. I wish you every success in your court case. Well, next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, what's on your programme this evening?
Well, loads on, Jacob. So luxury sports cars for people on benefits. I think that probably needs to stop. There's going to be a giant mega mosque near the Lake District. How did that get planning permission? Time to copy Trump and use the Navy to police our borders in the Channel. And female nurses have been told to get changed in a broom cupboard because a bloke wants to use their changing room. Oh, and is Prince Harry actually about to get deported? It looks as though his immigration file is going to be released tomorrow. Did he lie on it?
Well, that all sounds a very exciting programme. Every time I address Conservative associations, they come up to me and say how much they enjoy Patrick's programme. I would like them to say how much they enjoy my programme, but instead it's always Patrick's. But anyway, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Patrick's on after the weather. I'll be back tomorrow. In case you've forgotten, I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg. This has been State of the Nation. And the weather in Somerset, oh, it's absolutely glorious. The weekend was perfect. The sun was shining. We had the hunt meet on Saturday. More people out for the Mendip Farmers than we've ever had before in perfect Somerset weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours, we'll see clearing skies widely across the UK, leading to a chilly night, but sunny for most of us on Tuesday. High pressure in charge at the moment. That's keeping things relatively settled. It's also brought a lot of cloud through Monday from the east and southeast, but that cloud's now drifting away. It's going to become confined to parts of northern and western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and a few spots through Wales and Western England overnight. Otherwise, widespread clear skies form, and under those clear skies a widespread frost is expected, particularly for northern England as well as Scotland, with temperatures in some spots below -5°C. A bit of a breeze in the south will prevent a frost here, despite blue skies to wake up to, and actually plenty of sunshine, so out of the wind. As temperatures rise through the day, it is going to feel a bit more pleasant through much of England and Wales. Northern Ireland stays with the cloud for the time being, and some patches will also continue to affect the west and northwest of Scotland, especially towards Shetland, but elsewhere across Scotland, barely a cloud in sight, and we'll keep those long spells of sunshine going right the way through the day. I think for many places it will be a breezier day compared with the last few, certainly noticeable for the south and the east, and that's a cold wind, so temperatures of 11 or 12 Celsius might not feel that pleasant in the wind, but out of the wind with the increasingly strong sunshine, feeling very warm indeed. Now, on Wednesday morning, we'll start off similar to Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. Sunnier skies for northwestern parts of the UK compared with Tuesday, but otherwise it's a similar day. Plenty of blue skies and dry weather, although a change is on the way. Through Thursday and into Friday, we'll see a bit more cloud arrive in the west and southwest, along with a few showers, but at the same time, it turns warmer.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.